Maybe Jim, you could give us a sense now from your your kind of networking across Asia as to what you think production is going to be looking like this year.
Okay, I'll give just a brief roundabout. Start with Vietnam. Last year we were looking at about 750,000 metric tons of total production. Vanamay being 480 to 500,000 of that, and Black Tiger being 250 to 270. It seems that production isn't going to drop. At least it's looking that way now, and it actually could move up a little bit this year in Vietnam. I don't think they've been impacted physically by the pandemic. Vietnam had a very low case rate. They went into lockdown very early, and with a rather let's say iron-fisted type response to it, they got it under control very quickly, and they had very few cases and very few deaths. Of course, it's probably a little more than what they publicized, but definitely they got it under control quickly. They had a recent problem up in Da Nang, but for the most part, they're close to zero in terms of new cases that are locally transmitted. So they've done okay, and they haven't had the impact from COVID. So they didn't have the factories being running at below capacity like they were in India. They didn't have logistic problems moving brute stock or feed or whatever. So things there have gone okay. Now, raw material prices are certainly lower than they were last year. So there's been reticence on the part of the farmers there to seed, but maybe pricing being decent enough for them to continue on. So I don't think if there's a drop, it won't be much, but I think more likely by year's end we'll see a modest increase, maybe 3%, 5%, something like that. Going on to Thailand, well, Robbins is the one who should be speaking about Thailand. Correct me if I'm wrong, Robbins, but it seems Thailand production won't be substantially different than last year in terms of gross tonnage. There's maybe differences in sizing and everything, but year to date is not far off from what it was last year. And unless raw material prices go up considerably and the farmers become more incentivized to seed, then maybe the production will be similar. But again, I'll leave that for Robbins. He's the man to talk to about Thailand. Indonesia, it's always a funny place trying to get a figure. It's even funnier than China in some instances. You get government figures of production of 800,000-900,000 tons, which don't really make sense on any level to me or to anybody in the business. So it's always to find out Indonesian production, you talk to 10 people and average it out. So somewhere around 420, 450, let's say 2019, 420, 450, could be as much as 500,000 tons. But somewhere, let's say 400,000 to 500,000. I don't think their production will be substantially different for this year. It could be similar or it could be up marginally. Indonesia has been very busy with retail for the United States, predominantly. So I think the prices the farmers have been getting, again, lower than last year, but maybe good enough to keep them seeding the ponds. So I think Indonesia, similar to last year. I mean, you look at all the processors there are chock-a block with orders for U.S. retail, for the major retailers, for Walmart or Sam's or H-E-B or Ahold, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that is their bread and butter, Easy Peel and CPTO, Peel products. Indonesia is affected by COVID. It's kind of hard to get a handle on what their case rate is. It's a very big country, 14,000 islands, and it's complicated. But the disease is not under control there, as far as most people would say, and not under control at all. The government has been kind of moving between some kind of lockdowns and enforcement of social distancing, mask wearing, and maybe giving a shot at herd immunity. So it's been up and down there. They had air traffic kind of locked down for a period of time, and now it's opened up again. Air traffic being very important when you have 14,000 islands, you need to move between them. So, but in terms of effect on the industry, not much. I mean, there's one plant in Eastern Java who I think you would have seen in Undercurrent news where they've been affected. They've had quite a number of cases in their plant. I don't know if they've got it under control now or not, but I haven't heard of too many factories where they have a lot of cases among their workers. I'm sure there's some because the disease is moving through Indonesia, but it has not obviously impacted the business. So production has continued. The processors have been operating at pretty close to full capacity. So Indonesia's been doing okay through the pandemic. Come to India, now they have been impacted, obviously, starting from logistics, as Robbins was saying, logistics in terms of moving raw material into the plants, logistics in terms of getting broodstock around the country, feed, you name it. And then with such a rapidly rising caseload, factories operating at under capacity, at 50% capacity, 30% capacity, and for a period of time, many factories not operating at all. The farmers have been physically impacted in terms of COVID, being unable to have the workers, being unable to access the post larvae because the broodstock weren't moving around, other logistic things. And then on the other hand, they've also been very reluctant and very concerned about pricing. At the beginning, when we were getting into March and April, and we were, the world was thinking in terms of a major price crash, which did not materialize. And farmers in India and obviously other countries to a lesser degree were concerned, and were being much more conservative in terms of their seeding. So you have the physical aspect of the pandemic, and then the marketing and the perception of what's going to happen to pricing, and that is made farmers reluctant. So being careful not to seed, and then feeling a little more optimistic coming in and seeding. They also had some weather issues, which also had some impact, but they weren't in the heavy production areas of Andhra Pradesh. They were more up in Bhubaneswar area, up in West Bengal, etc. So didn't have quite as much of an impact. So India production, if we look 2019. I think we're somewhere between 750 and 800,000 of head-on production, somewhere in that range, and it'll be down, maybe as much as 30% for the year, certainly 20%. So we're looking at a substantial drop out of India. So we may end up out of India between 500,000 and 600,000 tons of head-on raw material. Still remains to be seen because it's very opaque. It's very it is also very very spread out and difficult to know what's really going to happen in terms of production there. But last week there was a drop in raw material prices, but that was not really an indicator of what's happening, and the prices seem to have been moving up again. And I think the Indians have enough orders on hand, so I don't see any real impact, a lowering of prices there for any sustained period of time. And then China, well, as Robin said, and Peng will know more. Their own domestic production used to be 1 million tons. We're all pretty clear about that. What it is now compared to last year, some will say that it's somewhere around 500,000 tons, 550,000 tons, and 2021 sorry, 2019, you know, in that area, and this year similar production. Not a great difference, but again, hard to peg that production.